Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise and extract the most important insights from the sources you need to know. Today, we're plunging into the incredible world of AI and large language models, LLMs, these tools that are really reshaping everything. Daily tasks, scientific research, you name it.
Absolutely. It feels like every week there's a new AI story dominating headlines, doesn't it?
It really does. But, while these tools are undeniably powerful, they also come with this fascinating um, set of capabilities and limitations that aren't always obvious.
You're totally right. Everyone sees the headlines, here's the hype. But what's actually going on under the hood?
Yeah.
What are these models truly good at? And where do they fall flat?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people maybe assume they're sort of flawless oracles of truth, and well, that's just not the case, is it?
Not at all. And that's exactly our mission today. This deep dive is all about pulling back the curtain on some of the leading LLMs. We're talking ChatGPT, GPT-4, Claude, and Bard.
The big names.
The big names, yeah.
Yeah.
To really understand their strengths, expose their sometimes surprising weaknesses, and arm you, our listener, with the knowledge to use them wisely.
And we've got some solid sources for this, right? Research papers, user experiences.
Exactly. We've pulled from rigorous research papers and real-world user experiences to bring you the most critical insights. So let's unpack this. Are these AI wordsmiths truly reliable, or are we maybe building on a foundation of digital sand?
Good question. Where should we start?
Okay. To begin answering that, let's dive into a comprehensive benchmark study. They called it Battle of the Wordsmiths, which I kind of like.
Well,
And this wasn't just a casual test. It was an extensive, formal evaluation. Researchers gathered over 1,000 questions, 1,002, I think,
Right.
across 27 incredibly diverse categories. Think reasoning, logic, facts, coding, even how they handle things like bias, language, and humor.
So a really broad look.
A very broad look. And here's the crucial part. Each question had an accurate, verified answer. That sets a really high bar for assessment,
Definitely. No wiggle room there. So what did they find overall? Well, the results were quite telling, actually. Revealed a pretty nuanced landscape. GPT-4, it emerged as the clear leader.
Okay.
Performed strongest across almost all categories, hitting an impressive 84.1% success rate.
Wow, that's high. But not perfect.
Not perfect, no. And then you contrast that with Bard, which faced significant challenges. It came in at 62.4%.
Oof, quite a difference there.
A big difference. But what's particularly striking from this Wordsmith's data set, and I found this really interesting, is that while one model could be correct maybe 93% of the time on some question, all models were corrupt simultaneously only about 44% of the time.
Only 44%. That really tells you something, doesn't it?
It immediately tells you that each model brings something different to the table. It hints at, very diverse strengths and weaknesses among them.
Okay, so despite those challenges, there were clear areas where these models, well, they really sparkled, weren't there? Where did they actually shine?
Absolutely. The study found models generally demonstrated high proficiency in language understanding, factual recall,
Makes sense.
and even something they termed self-awareness. Now, we need to be clear here.
Yeah.
This doesn't imply actual consciousness or anything like that. It's more about their ability to give, diplomatic, well-structured responses when you ask them about themselves.
Okay, so managing the conversation about themselves well.
Exactly. And another interesting point was their strong performance in critical areas like bias, discrimination, and ethics. The study suggested they are relatively safe to utilize in these contexts.
That's reassuring.
It is. GPT-4 and Claude, for instance, achieved perfect scores in the bias category.
Perfect. Wow.
Perfect scores. The Bard was notably lower there, scoring around 70%.
Okay. So good on bias overall, but Bard lagging a bit. That's reassuring in some ways, but where did they stumble? Because the study also pointed to some significant difficulties, especially in math, coding, IQ tests, that kind of thing, reasoning categories.
Indeed. And it's here that we really see the limitations more clearly. For instance, across all the reasoning subcategories, the average accuracy was only 66%.
Just 2/3, basically.
Yeah, and it gets even more specific and kind of worse. Spatial reasoning accuracy, understanding objects in space, was surprisingly low, 33.75%.
Ouch. That's barely above chance for some tests.
Right. And physical reasoning, sort of understanding how things work in the real world, only 51.92%, barely over half.
Okay.
And here's a real kicker for Bard.
Hmm.
It was unable to solve any symbolic reasoning questions. Zero.
None at all. What exactly does symbolic reasoning cover?
Think abstract symbols, logical relationships,
Yeah.
like decoding a complex puzzle or, abstract algebra-type problems. It's not just retrieving facts.
Got it. So Bard really struggled there.
Completely blanked. And while ChatGPT and GPT-4 were definitely superior in math and coding compared to the others, they still encountered difficulties. They weren't perfect by any means.
You know, what's fascinating here is that even with these vast training data sets, fundamental logical understanding, that real-world grasp, it remains a significant hurdle.
It really does.
It really speaks to the difference between just recognizing patterns in text and, like, true comprehension, doesn't it?
It does. It's a crucial distinction, a really important one.
Now let's talk about how these models relate to each other, because the study looked at that too, and it leads to this truly groundbreaking concept.
Yeah, the correlations.
Exactly. They found a high correlation between ChatGPT and GPT-4, Pearson correlation of 0.82, cosine similarity of 0.71.
Which, for anyone not deep in the thats, basically means.
It essentially means they have quite similar response patterns. Think of it like two different students who often arrive at the same conclusions, maybe using slightly different words. These numbers just kind of quantify how similar those patterns are.
Okay, so there's sort of siblings, in a way.
Sort of, yeah. Bard, however, showed a lower correlation with the others, around 0.67 across the board, so it behaves more uniquely.
All right, it's doing its own thing more often.
Exactly.
And this uniqueness, combined with that earlier finding, only 44% correct answers across all models simultaneously, that leads us to this really powerful concept of model integration.
Okay.
The researchers found something remarkable. 92.9% of questions were answered correctly by at least one model. They called this the OR model.
92.9%. Wow. Okay, that's a truly significant jump from any single model.
Huge jump.
Does this suggest that, like, a collective AI could eventually overcome the limitations of individual models entirely? Because that OR model significantly outperforms even the best one. GPT-4 is 84.1%.
Yeah, especially in certain areas.
Right. They mentioned it was especially true in language. The OR model hit 97.6% compared to GPT-4's 92.2%. And reasoning, 90% for the OR model versus GPT-4's 75.6%.
Big gains in reasoning.
So what does this all mean? Like, how might we build future AI based on this?
Well, maybe not overcome the limitations entirely, but it certainly offers a powerful roadmap for mitigating those weaknesses, right? It strongly suggests that by combining the strengths of different models, maybe through a system that intelligently routes queries or aggregates responses, something like that, we could achieve a much higher level of accuracy than any single model can deliver on its own. It's maybe less about finding the one perfect model and more about leveraging the diversity of what's available.
Using the team, essentially.
Pretty much. Building an AI team.
Okay, that's a fascinating prospect. But beyond just performance numbers and accuracy percentages, there's another pressing concern that often dominates the headlines when we talk LLMs.
Yes, the H word.
Hallucination, yeah. And we're not just talking about simple errors here. LLMs can generate these hallucinations responses that sound plausible, maybe even confident, but are entirely incorrect or nonsensical.
And sometimes they even fabricate details or entire sources, which is particularly tricky.
Exactly. This isn't just a minor glitch, is it? It can have really serious implications.
Definitely not minor. Consider a study by Chelly and colleagues. They tasked LLMs with finding references for systematic medical reviews, like proper scientific literature searches.
Okay, a high-stakes task.
Very high stakes. And the findings were, well, quite shocking. Bard had a staggering hallucination rate of 91.4%.
91%, basically making it all up.
Pretty much. GPT 3.5 was at 39.6%, which is still really high. And even GPT-4, the top performer from the other study, hit 28.6%.
Almost a third of its references were hallucinated for GPT-4. Imagine trying to use these for actual medical research.
You just couldn't. The study found Bard actually used a kind of try-and-repeat approach. It would generate multiple versions of hallucinated papers, often with similar titles.
Just throwing stuff at the wall.
Essentially. And the precision rates, the percentage of retrieved references that were actually relevant and real, were incredibly low. GPT-4 was at 13.4%.
13%.
And Bard, 0% precision.
Zero.
And recall rates finding the relevant stuff that was out there, similarly dismal. GPT-4 at 13.7%, Bard again at 0%.
So, completely unsuitable as primary research tools for scientific reviews. That seems undeniable.
Undeniable. And here's a critical detail they noted. While the LLMs often suggested users conduct their own research, the standard disclaimer.
Right. Always check my work.
Yeah. But they never prompted users to specifically verify the authenticity of the citations they provided.
Ah, that's a huge red flag, isn't it? They give you fake references, but don't warn you they might be fake.
It truly is. And this isn't just a flaw, it fundamentally redefines the user's role, I think. For high-stakes information, LLMs aren't really providing answers, they're providing signals. Starting points, maybe.
Hmm.
The burden of verification shifts entirely to the human. We become critical fact-checkers, not just passive consumers,
Hmm.
because they don't know what they don't know, and they certainly don't prompt you to check their work on the very information they just gave you.
That's a really important point. Let's look at another case study, this time focusing on historical accuracy specifically, the origins of SWOT analysis. Apparently, that history is a bit murky even for human scholars.
It is, yeah.
In ChatGPT-4, it performed well at describing SWOT analysis generally, what it is, how it's used,
Right. The definition part was fine.
but it struggled significantly with the historical origins.
Yes, the study cited specific, widespread historical inaccuracies that GPT-4 just repeated. Common myths, really.
Like what?
Like tracing SWOT back to Harvard Business School in the 1960s, or attributing its introduction to a specific 1965 book, or claiming a guy named Albert S. Humphrey developed it in the 60s. These are all common misconceptions you find online.
Things that sound right but aren't quite accurate.
Exactly. Important details to get right if you're studying business history, for instance.
And here's where it gets really interesting. They tried adjusting the settings, right? Like temperature, which
Yeah.
controls creativity,
Right. Lower temperature means less randomness, more focused output.
and top, which also kind of reins in the word choices. They turned these dials down, basically telling the model, be less creative, be more accurate.
Trying to force factuality.
Exactly. But it did not significantly improve the historical accuracy. In some cases, apparently, it even got slightly worse.
That's counterintuitive.
It is. So what's the likely cause? Why does it keep making these mistakes even when you tell it to be strict?
Well, it points back to the training data, most likely. It seems ChatGPT-4 is primarily trained on easily available public websites.
Ah.
Sites like Business Balls Ltd., Marketing Teacher Ltd., RapidBee Ltd., places that summarize concepts, not necessarily the deep, authoritative, scholarly academic publications, especially ones hiding behind paywalls.
So it's learning from the common wisdom online, which might itself be inaccurate.
Precisely. So for users, this means we absolutely have to question the provenance of the AI's knowledge. We need to understand that common digital wisdom isn't always accurate wisdom.
It highlights that LLMs reflect the internet's most accessible information, not necessarily its most authoritative. Big difference.
Huge difference.
And look, this isn't just about obscure historical facts or medical reviews. We saw a Reddit thread discussing GPT 4.5, maybe a newer internal version or something.
Right.
A user shared their firsthand account claiming OpenAI's touted lower hallucination rates for this newer model are, quote, untrue and dangerously so in practice.
Dangerously so. That's strong language. Did they give examples?
They did. They pointed out that other models, especially those using reasoning combined with web search, far surpass GPT 4.5's accuracy.
Okay.
And they gave a really stark example. GPT 4.5 misreporting a legal case outcome as the complete opposite of what the actual judge concluded.
Wow. That's not a small error. That's fundamentally wrong.
Fundamentally wrong, and the user made a crucial point. These aren't just simple errors, they're coherent facts that are blatantly false.
And that's exactly what makes them harder to detect, right? If it just spat out nonsense, you dismiss it. But if it sounds coherent and factual, but is dead wrong.
That poses a much greater risk to anyone relying on that information. It feels more trustworthy, even when it's not.
Yeah. It's like that student who guesses confidently on an exam instead of just admitting they don't know.
Exactly. The sentiment from that thread was really palpable. LLMs should admit when they don't know, rather than, as the user put it, bullshit their way through an exam.
Couldn't agree more. And I don't know is far more valuable than confident misinformation.
Absolutely. Now, let's pivot slightly and explore Bard's distinctive niche, because it has one, but that niche can sometimes lead it into, well, an ethical quagmire.
Okay.
Bard's unique strength, its key differentiator really, is its real-time access to the internet,
Right. It can pull current info.
which allows it to provide up-to-date information on current events, emerging trends, things other models might not know about yet. On the surface, that sounds like a powerful capability.
It does sound useful,
But here's where it gets really interesting. There was a critical quote from a Google executive. They stated that, quote, Bard is not intended to provide factual answers, just a companion for creative tasks.
wait, hang on. not intended to provide factual answers.
That's the quote.
Wow. Okay, that single quote puts a lot of the earlier findings, especially around Bard's lower accuracy and higher hallucination rates, into a new and, frankly, rather alarming light.
It certainly does, doesn't it? And it connects directly to another study, this one by the Center for Countering Digital Hate.
Okay, what did they find?
They tested Bard on 100 known misinformation narratives, things about climate, vaccines, various conspiracies.
Very sensitive topics.
Very. And they found Bard generated persuasive misinformation content on 78 out of those 100 narratives.
78% of the time, it generated misinformation on these topics. Given that executive statement, what do you make of that?
Wow.
It's deeply concerning, isn't it? The study further explained that Bard was willing to promote these false narratives in 96% of cases where it generated something on the topic.
So nearly always willing to go there.
Yes. And crucially, in 78% of those instances, it did so without adding any context to negate the false claims. No, some people say this, but evidence shows that just the misinformation.
Just presented it straight.
Which raises this huge question about user responsibility and AI's role in maybe perpetuating academic urban legends or even, dangerous falsehoods. If the tool isn't intended for facts, yet it consistently generates persuasive misinformation, where does the responsibility lie?
That's the million-dollar question. And these weren't subtle examples of misinformation either. The study reported Bard generated things like the Holocaust never happened,
Oh, wow.
or promoting conversion therapy for gay individuals, just incredibly alarming stuff.
Truly dangerous content.
What's more, they found that Bard's safety features, the ones meant to stop this, could often be evaded by simple tricks, like simple spelling modifications, using a 0 instead of an O in COV1D, for example.
So the guardrails are easily bypassed.
Apparently so in these tests. It highlights a significant vulnerability for misuse, and it makes that executive statement sound almost like a disclaimer, a CYA, rather than just a description of its function.
We told you not to trust it for facts.
Yeah.
Well, it's potentially spreading harmful nonsense.
Yeah, that's
Problematic.
deeply problematic. So, okay, pulling all this together, what does this all mean for us? As we try to navigate this rapidly evolving AI frontier, it's clearly a nuanced reality.
Definitely nuanced. No single LLM is best for all tasks. That much is clear.
Their individual strengths, their weaknesses, they mean the best choice really depends on your specific use case, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that leads to, I think, the core takeaway from all of this. The absolutely indispensable human element.
Human oversight.
Critical, non-negotiable need for human oversight and validation of AI-generated content. Especially for anything factual or critical. We saw even advanced models like GPT-4 often fail to respect specific criteria and prompts.
Sure.
Their output simply requires rigorous checking. We are, and we have to remain, the ultimate arbiters of truth.
We're the final editors, but there's also real promise here, right? Especially in collaboration, or model finding.
Yeah, that was incredibly encouraging.
It really points to a promising avenue for future research. The idea that integrating multiple models, using their diverse strengths to compensate for individual weaknesses, that could lead to superior accuracy.
It's a potential game changer. It means we don't necessarily have to wait for a single perfect AI God model, We can potentially build more reliable systems today by combining what we have.
Making the whole greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really underscores the training data imperative.
How they learn in the first place.
Right. For LLMs to become truly reliable, especially in specialized fields or for historical accuracy, their training data needs to go beyond just general internet content. It needs more authoritative scholarly sources.
Moving from just broad accessibility to deep accuracy.
That's the goal, or should be.
Ultimately, then, this all calls for a deeper level of critical thinking from all of us using these tools. LLMs are powerful, no doubt. Great for communication, creativity, even information retrieval to a point.
But they are not infallible truth tellers. Far from it.
Okay, so let's recap our deep dive today. Large language models like ChatGPT, GPT-4, Claude, and Bard show real strengths, especially in language understanding and general facts.
But they struggle significantly with complex reasoning, math, and coding. Big gaps there.
And the hallucination problem is serious and persistent. These models can confidently generate false information, even fabricate sources.
Making human validation absolutely paramount. You just cannot skip that step.
Cannot skip it. However, the potential of combining these models' strengths, that OR model concept offers a genuinely promising path forward for more accurate AI system.
Right. And that leads us nicely into our final provocative thought for you, the listener. As these AI tools continue to evolve at this incredible pace, the real deep dive won't just be into what they can do technologically,
Hmm.
but maybe it's more about how skillfully and how critically you choose to use them.
The responsibility shifts back to us.
Exactly. And what new responsibilities does that place on each of us in this age of abundant, yet often imperfect information?
So the final question for you is, what will you do to ensure the knowledge you gain, whether it's from AI or anywhere else, is actually built on solid ground?